last, we can get high because we gone. I feel alive. Anywhere, anyway, I will love you. We rule the world, just you and I. Just let me down, we walk the line. When all the things go wrong, I'll take a shot for you. Give me your...
Hey beauty babes, welcome to my channel. I'm Maria, aka agapelovegirl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I've got a makeup tutorial and a little bit of a review on the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. Now, I purchased this palette myself on the day that it launched on the Anastasia Beverly Hills website. I was a little bit iffy if I was going to purchase it because when I very first saw this palette, it wasn't something that really spoke to me. I was like, I don't know if I really like it that much. But then when it was getting closer to the launch time and I started seeing swatches of it and looks with it for the people who got it early as PR, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, and I knew I really wanted to have it. So when it launched, I checked it out and I put it in my cart, and then something in me was like, no, you don't need it, you don't need it. So I actually waited for a little bit. I think I purchased it like 3 or 4 hours later. It was still in stock, which is always nice when something goes up and it's still in stock within, you know, hours later or whatever. And so I did end up purchasing it the same day it launched. And then a couple days after that, I actually had a work trip for MBA Cosmetics. If you follow me on Instagram and saw my Insta stories, you probably would have known that. But anyway, so I didn't get it right away when it came to me. So I didn't get to, you know, play with it right away. And it was during that time when I was gone, when there was a lot of stuff going on around this palette. I saw a bunch of really bad reviews, everyone talking about how powdery it is and the fallout and all that stuff. You guys all know if you've been keeping up with this palette and all the drama surrounding it. And obviously I wasn't home to get my palette and touch my palette and see my thoughts on it, so that's why I'm putting this up quite a bit later than a lot of other people. But I knew that the Modern Renaissance palette has a lot of kick up, a lot of fallout and stuff like that, and that was something that never really bothered me because the shadows are just amazing and perform well, and they're just pigmented. So fallout and a lot of kick up on products or eyeshadows doesn't really bother me. It never really has. I know that Lorac shadows do the same thing, and those are some of my favorite shadows as well, even though I don't use them a ton here on YouTube. But the pigmentation, the blendability is amazing. So I was kind of skeptical, thinking like, wow, I wonder if this palette's really that bad, or if people are just freaking out, same as some people did with the Modern Renaissance palette. So I was really eager to get back home and test it out for myself, but because of all the different issues and problems, I didn't want to just go into doing a review or tutorial after only using this palette one time. So I actually created several looks with it. I think this is my 4th look today that I decided to film, and there's still some colors that I have not used that I would like to use, and then I can update you guys maybe in the description box here later on in a future video to let you know what I think of those. But so far I will say I like it. I actually think it's a really beautiful palette. There is a lot of kick up, but not as crazy as some other people. Now, do I think those people are lying? No, I don't. But all I know is that I'm not having those issues. Like, I'm not really having any blending issues, and I'm not really having any, like, I don't know, someone was saying something about oxidizing. I've never seen eyeshadows oxidate, I don't really think. So I haven't had that issues, and I've been wearing these looks all day. When I do them, I wear them all day. My son is in football and he has football practice in the evenings, and so it's really hot here in California, so I've been wearing them out in the daytime and in the evenings when it's still really hot and all that kind of stuff, and my eyeshadows still look really good. So yeah, for me, I haven't really had any issues. Now, I will also show you guys my palette up close so you can see what mine looks like. Like I said, I've created several different looks with this palette, and I played with this and swatched most all the shadows so far. And while I do get a lot of kick up when I use this, it's not crazy like I've seen some other people have to deal with. And I really do think it just has to do with you know, how you apply these shadows. Obviously, like, you don't need a lot. Like, you just tap your brush in there and there is product on the brush. And I don't think I've ever been one to swirl my brushes around. I think if it's a really hard, like, and I'm familiar with a brand, like, I know Urban Decay's shadows are very hard, like very hard. And so I think in those I might swirl my brushes, but most all the shadows I use, I always just tap my brush in. And this definitely does kick up a lot of product even when you're just gently tapping, but nothing to the extreme. So you can see my palette's really clean. I haven't cleaned it off. I've like blown it off a little bit when there's been some kick up and stuff, but it's nothing crazy like you've seen. So I know people have talked about different batches, a bad batch, different pressed way, so maybe I just got a good one, but so far I'm really actually enjoying this palette and haven't had any issues. But again, like I said, as I continue to play with it and try some more of the colors, I will update you guys either in the description box here or in a future video. Now, if I had one negative thing to say about this, and it's not even really negative, it's just different to me, is that the 3 metallic shades in this palette are very, very different and very unique. Nothing like I've seen from Anastasia, at least. And that is that these aren't like a metallic shadow that I'm used to. They kind of really remind me of the L'Oreal Infallibles. I think that's what they're called. They're kind of like in a little jar and a little pot, and they're kind of just like not a cream, not a powder, but somewhere in between, some kind of weird hybrid that just, and they're beautiful and they work well, but that's what these remind me of, because they're not like a powder, they're not quite a cream, but they I don't know, they're just, they have that texture. If you're familiar with those, that's what these remind me of. And so with that, I do find those ones of more than anything a little bit more difficult to work with. When I first went in with them, I went in with a brush that I would normally go in with metallic shadows, and it's a flat brush. One that I use most often is from MBA Cosmetics, and I think it's horsehair, I want to say, and it's just a flat brush, and that didn't really work well with it. I used my finger, and I felt like my finger didn't really work well with these either. So the only brush that I found that really works like amazing with these is this brush from Real Techniques, and it's just their little itty bitty brush. What's it called? It's a detailer brush, and I think I got this in like a little set a long time ago, but this so far is what I found works the very best with these little creamy metallic eyeshadows. And so when I apply with this, I don't have any issues. I don't have to spray it with a setting spray, which I do often do when I'm using metallics, and I don't need to add anything extra. Like sometimes when I'm using metallics, I put a little extra primer on, and I didn't have to do that with these. You guys will see in my tutorial how I used it. I used 2 of them, Cube and Adorn, in this eye look today, and I used this brush and I didn't really have any issues. So that's kind of what I've learned. That's my one kind of downside, my one con about this palette. And but other than that, like I figure out how to work them. They're just very, very different. So really, other than that, that's like the main thing that I felt was troublesome for me personally with this palette. So with all that said, I don't want to ramble too much. I know that's kind of a quicker review. It's nothing too in detailed, but you know, I know there's been tons of reviews out there already, tons of very detailed in-depth reviews. So I don't think you need like me to go into and repeat anything else that anybody else is saying. I just wanted to share my thoughts and my experience so far with this palette, and also show a little tutorial so you could see them in use and how I use them and how they work on me and all that kind of stuff. So with all that said, we're gonna go ahead and roll into the tutorial, which real quick, I just want to say, I don't know if any of you guys noticed today's look. Usually when I do my tutorials, I like to plan them and do them ahead of time. That way I know how they're gonna turn out before I film a tutorial with them. But I didn't want to do that today because I just wanted to show you guys like on camera how they work and just kind of going through the creative process and stuff like that. And this look actually was inspired by my shirt that I'm wearing today with the burgundy, and it's got a little bit of that tealy blue and a little bit of gold, a little bit of pink, and so that's kind of what I've got on my eyes today. And I wasn't sure it was gonna work, but I like how it turned out. So yeah, that's enough of my rambling. Let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Okay, to start off, I'm actually not going to be using a primer at all. I use a eyebrow concealer that I'm always using from Beauty Junkies, and that's actually what I pulled down onto my lids as well. So that's all I have as my base before I get into applying eyeshadows. Now the first shade I'm going to go into is Roxy. I'm going to take that on a fluffy blending brush and just apply that starting on the outer corner of my eyes, and just blend that in windshield wiper and circular motions into my crease. As you can see, there's a lot of pigmentation right off the bat, so you just slowly build it up and blend it forward. Next, I'm going into the gorgeous shade All Star with a tapered blending brush. This is the EB09 from Sedona Lace. I use this all the time. And I'm just going to be taking that to deepen up my crease. This is the main color I really wanted to be the focus of my crease, but I just didn't want to go into it first thing. That's why I put down Roxy as my transition shade first. Once I'm done with that, I'm just going to go back in with that first blending brush I used, no additional product, and just blend some more. Make sure it's all smoked out and blended together perfectly. Then I'm going into the shade Axis with a flat brush, and I'm going to be applying that on most of my lids, but kind of keeping it on the center and outer portion of my lids mostly. And I'm trying to be pretty careful here because I want to get it just right on my lid, not too far up into my crease, and I didn't want it to blend too much with my crease and get the colors too muddied together. So I'm really just focusing that from my crease down. Now, because I want this to look a little bit more seamless and blended and not such a hard contrast or harsh line between those two shades, I'm taking this tapered blending brush again, and I'm dipping half of it in the shade All Star and the other half in the shade Axis. And I do this, I've done this before with other looks, just so I can blend them together without them blending too much, like mixing too much together. Now, this still will create kind of a purpley color effect right in my crease because of course it is a blue and a reddish shade, but doing it this way allows you to blend it so you get the mix, but you still get each shade showing separately. Now I'm going into the shade Cube with a very small detailer synthetic brush, and I'm going to be taking that to the inner corner of my eye and just blending and sweeping it back towards the blue color I put down and just kind of creating a nice gradient effect. Now I'm just bringing a little bit more of the shade Axis, that blue shade, right over Cube, just to clean it up a little bit and again create a more gradient, well blended look. Then back with that same detailer synthetic brush from Real Techniques, I'm going into the shade Adorn, and this is what I'm going to be putting on my lower lash line. Then I'm going into the shade Dawn because I want something like a matte shade for my brow bone and to do cleanup like I usually always do with all of my looks. And I do apply this, but then I go in later with the Milani Multitasker face powder and use that because it's a little bit lighter. So that would be one kind of downside that I didn't mention earlier about this palette, is that I feel like it doesn't really have a normal brow bone highlight. And that wraps it up for the tutorial portion of this video. I didn't do anything else on camera for the rest of my face because I really wanted this tutorial to just be focusing on the shadows and how they look, and just for you guys to see them in use in this tutorial. So that wraps it up for the tutorial, and here is the completed look. I actually really like how it turned out, and I really do enjoy this palette. And I know I didn't really say if I recommend this palette or not, because I really think that's up to you. You guys need to just decide if it's something that you really like and you like the colors and you're willing to work with it, or maybe just holding off and waiting a little bit to see if they improve anything about the palette and make sure there's no more inconsistencies and all that kind of stuff. So those are just my thoughts, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Alright, that wraps it up for my tutorial and review. If I left anything out that you guys are curious about my thoughts on, or have any questions for me about this palette and my experience with it, please leave a comment and let me know, and I'd love to answer them and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, much love and hugs to you. Bye, beauty babes.